Okay, we are recording. Demos, you want to go ahead and introduce our first speaker?
All right. Well, first of all, welcome everyone to another installment of our Midwest short talks. We've got 3 talks for you today. The first one is going to be more on the research side of a talk, and that's going to be presented by Professor Ashraf, who completed her civil engineering degree from Penn State in 2015 and currently is an assistant professor at Bradley University. Prior to that, she had research stints at Virginia Tech, as well as Oak Ridge. And she's going to be telling us about analysis of hydraulic geometry for unstable stream channels. So with that, I will let Professor Ashraf take it from here.
Well, thank you, everyone. Let me first share my screen. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending the talk. I'm currently working as an assistant professor at Bradley University. And today I'll be presenting a talk focusing on an analysis of hydraulic geometry for unstable stream channels. This work is being funded by Illinois Space Grant and is currently ongoing. So no alluvial channel is actually stable in a sense that no change occurs. Rather, there are degrees of instability depending on rate and type of channel change. For example, we have aggradation, we have degradation, channel migration. This instability can occur for changes in base level hydrologic conditions or anthropogenic changes or any kind of natural disaster. So no matter what reason we have behind channel instability, unstable stream channels warrants a separate assessment and analysis. They're different from the regular stable channels. They are difficult to predict and treat locally, and these type of unstable stream channels include different types of instability, including channel widening, bank failure, degradation, aggradation, lateral migration. So when you talk about channel stability, physiographic region is one of the key factors in determining the degree of instability. Several well-known geomorphic studies have been done in Midwest, particularly in Midwest, because according to the past reconnaissance studies, the combination of easily erodible soil, extensive human disturbance has produced thousands of miles of unstable stream channels in Midwest region. So our particular focus, the first physiographic region we focused on is Appalachian Highland. So here streams are very steep, banks are steep. There are also potential for debris jam, but we tend to say for this reason that stability tends to be fair at worst, because although we have highly unstable stream channels, failed banks did heal quickly if we do not disturb any vegetation, if the watershed is not disturbed by human intervention. Failed banks did heal very quickly. We also have dense bank vegetation. We have armored bed, so we have some protection against bed erosion. The second reason we'll be focusing on a central lowland. It is detrimental. We have a detrimental combination to breeze or any hydraulic structure stability. Channels are highly unstable because we have erodible bank with silt and loess, rapid channel bed degradation with silt, clay, and sand. We have high failure bank even with vegetation. So although we have vegetation, we still have bank failure in these regions. One of the reasons we have such a detrimental condition because we have very high human disturbance in this region. We have widespread channel alteration. We have farming with no riparian buffer, cattle grazing and hoof damage. So not only we have very highly erodible soil, we also have highly human disturbance in this region. So this is very detrimental from the point of view that the channels will be highly unstable, and also we're gonna lose hydraulic stability for any hydraulic structures. Then the last one I'll be focusing on is the coastal plain. Here streams are sluggish due to low slope. We have backwater from bay or estuary. We also have potential for debris jam. We also have widespread channel alteration. We have enduring dams and levees throughout this region. But still, it's only detrimental when vegetation is removed. So if we do not disturb, we can attain natural stability for this region. So when I select sites, I typically focus on these regions. There are all other regions that are highly unstable, but we do not have data. So I try to select some sites where we have highly unstable physiographic regions and where we also have some indication that hydraulic collapse occurs now and then. So the only database for United States we have from New York Department of Transportation. They are the only department who collect data on hydraulic bridge collapse or any hydraulic collapse, and they are willing to share the data. So from my literature review, no other department does this, or even they do that, they don't share with the public. So I contact New York Department of Transportation from their bridge collapse database. Most the data they recorded fall within this Appalachian Highland, Central Lowland Coastal Plain. Now, to make sure, it does not mean we have high collapse in this region. It does mean that the data is available for this region. For the other regions, may or may not be. We do not have any data. I contact other Department of Transportation. They're not willing to share the data, or they don't collect the data. So I select the data again, the sites again, which are situated in highly unstable region, and also where we have recorded bridge collapse. So in these regions, we have bridge collapse, either partial collapse or complete collapse. And apparently the bridge collapse due to hydraulic reasons. That's the apparent reason from the collapse database. We do not have any clear data why they collapse, but apparently it is written that the collapse events occur due to the hydraulic reasons. So there is some certain characteristics for this region. Besides, we have very highly unstable region because of erodible soil, because of human disturbance. We have all those things happening in these regions. The other thing is that also we have some very unlikely hydraulic events. So in this figure, you can see the first one is 2-year, 5-year return period flow. This shows 10-year return period flows, 20-year. And we typically expect outliers to have outliers. As you can see, these black dots. We expect to see these outliers maybe after 100 or 150 return period flows. But for this region, particularly Appalachian Highland, we have outliers for 50-year flood. So this is not regular, not general pattern. So for these regions, we can say outliers are not unexpected. So having a high flash flood is a regular. Having allowed outliers is a regular event, because we can expect outliers even as low as for 50-year flow. So that requires another hydrologic analysis, maybe because of anthropogenic changes and human interventions. We have these high flash flows at low return periods. So all these regions, we have flood, scour, we have high channel instability, and from hydraulic point of view, we mainly focus on locally. We do not focus on what is happening in regional. Stream restoration managers typically look at physiographic regions at regional scale, but for us hydraulic engineers, we mainly focus on locally. So when we talk about fixing any stream or any intersection, we mainly talking about local scour and contraction scour. So local scour is the removal of soil locally around the foundation, and contraction scour is when we have the contraction of flow during a flood event. So here we saw the two most, mainly the first one, where NY State throughway over Scoray Creek collapsed during 1987. Especially after this collapse event, all the hydraulic design manuals were modified, and they are all modified based on the local condition. We do not look at regional conditions, what's happening at the physiographic scale. So what we have, we end up having a design manuals that mainly focus on locally, and we keep repairing these systems, keep having those partial and complete collapse without considering what is happening at a broader scale. So we keep fixing things. For example, in my room, I keep fixing things, but outside it's a chaos. So the current design manuals, the first thing that we learned from this unstable stability analysis, that we really have to look at a bigger scale if we want to avoid these collapse events. So here I try to classify the study sites into two basic categories. So on a regional scale, all those study sites are located in a region where we have highly unstable regions. But when you talk about locally, local watershed, there are some sites where local watersheds are not disturbed. So reference gauge or sites were identified based on indicators that were least disturbed watershed. So we have some least disturbed watershed within highly disturbed physiographic region. So at a regional scale, we have instability, but at a local scale, we have very undisturbed good watershed. So what we have from our preliminary analysis, that all those unstable stream channels do maintain a power relationship that we typically expect for stable channels. We still have them for unstable channels. So these are, if you look at this last one, this big triangle. So these are what we expect when we plot all the hydraulic geometric characteristics in a triangular plot. We call it ternary plot. This type of data we expect. So for unstable channels, these are channels where we have highly unstable physiographic region, but least disturbed watershed. They tend to move towards right. So they are not random. From the first point of view, at least from hydraulics point of view, they are not random. When we have stability local scale, but instability at a regional scale, we have some trend for reference site. So this diagram means that water depth makes a significant contribution in controlling the characteristics, not river width or any other characteristics, only the water depth. The other thing we tend to find is that velocity also play a major role, just like mountain rivers. They also play a major role for this hydraulic geometry. So although we have some trend in hydraulic geometry, the values do not match. The values of hydraulic geometry obviously do not match with the stable channels, but still we have some trend. So this is very striking result that for all the rivers, we have the similarity with the hydraulic geometry that we have for small steep mountain streams. For your information, the channels we are studying, they are not mountain streams, but they act like mountain streams when they have physiographic scale instability. Now, these are non-reference sites. So they have instability both at local and regional scale. They are random. So do not find any trend when they have instability both at local and regional scale. Still, they follow power relationship. So there needs more in-depth research, because although we tend to say they are unstable, they do not maintain any hydraulic equations. They do not comply with any natural physically driven equation. They still have some trend, some characteristics that we can actually characterize instability and redefine instability. So this is just the preliminary results, and our work is still going on. So the from the preliminary analysis, the conclusion I reach is that configuration for unstable streams are in contrast to general pattern, but still they follow a trend. And instability should be redefined, at least from hydraulic point of view, so which can renew our basic principles of hydraulics. So we can come up with a better design guidelines for hydraulic structure and also for stream restoration. So thank you, everyone. With this, I'll be ending my talk and happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you very much. We've got a few minutes for a couple of questions. If you want to unmute yourself and ask if you have a question.
This is Mark Moldwin. What are we expecting under global warming conditions over the next few decades in terms of enhanced precipitation and flooding? Are people changing the way they design bridges?
Yeah, because that's the main concern when I look at this one. We really did not expect an outlier at 50-year flood. So typically when we talk about, okay, we have global warming, we have some human disturbance on watershed, we're going to have outliers. But now the outliers are actually not outliers, they're regular. So we have to redefine when we talk about design flow. We typically tend to get 100-year flow, but at 100-year, we have 50-year, 500-year flow. So this is not actually 100-year flow. So we have to redefine what is return period of the flow and what should be our design flow if we talk about global warming and all the hydrologic changes.
Can you keep ahead of this just by making better and better bridges? Or do you really have to deal with the watershed?
For hydraulic interactions, obviously we have to deal with watershed, stream channels. We can modify the bridge materials, but it does not. All bridge materials can do when we have, let's say, an earthquake, wind load, we can deal with that. But when we deal with hydraulics, when the structure is in contact with water, somehow we have to deal with the stream channels. We have to make sure it acts in a certain way.
And I was curious, you said that a lot of states don't keep the data, and then those that do there's some of them that don't want to share it. Do you know why they would not want to share that kind of data?
That's an experience. So I spent almost like 4 or 5 years. I started from my postdoc at Virginia Tech, and it is a really a roller coaster for me, contacting them, try to get the data. I don't know why they don't want to share. I don't want to comment on that, but maybe because it's a collapse event. But still, I find it very strange that a collapse occurs and they don't keep the data, and even they keep the data, it should be open to public. But right now, New York Department of Transportation is the only department who are collecting not data within New York, but also from other states, and they're making it available. But that's something we have to reconsider, like which data should be available to public, because if the collapse event data are not open to the researchers, how we are going to know what's happening there?
That's odd anyway. But again, it's not the first time people are pretty tight-fisted about data like this. So I think we are at 20 minutes. So let's thank you again for that interesting talk, and let's move on to our next speaker, if we may.